Welcome to Mindset U Podcast, your source of mindset education. We aim to provide you with free, valuable education for you to thrive. Enjoy. The road to recovery is finding the sweet spot between progress and doing too much. Let's listen in on how Karen is able to use her wisdom to balance that line.
From the physical element, your doctor saying your fitness saved your life. Like, what do we know is you mentioned the muscle mass, right? That being a protected layer. But other aspects of fitness that people may not be aware of is bone density. Bone density improves drastically under fitness because you're stressing the bones because the muscles are pulling.
Do you do resistance training?
Yes.
Like weightlifting, all that stuff?
Yes, for a lot of years. Yep.
Yeah, so that correlates with the bone density.
And then you also have the cardiovascular blood flow,
Yes.
your body's ability to send nutrient-rich blood to an area to heal it. Like, all of these things are setting you up to be basically this machine that stands up 3 days after.
Anti-fragile.
Yeah.
Anti-fragile.
Antifragility is a book by that name, but it talks about the concept of, we make things, objects that are robust, that are strong, that can handle a lot of damage, right? But the thing is that the damage is they're resisting the damage. If any damage gets through, there's no recovering from that. Well, us as humans, we have a anti-fragility to ourselves in terms of we may not be robust, super tough that we can handle all this, but every time we get hit, we develop a callus, we develop strength, we develop more power to be able to handle that in the future, right? So what Moses is saying is, like, there's all these years of training with developing this anti-fragility where now you get hit with something that should take you entirely out. Like you mentioned, like life or death situation, you could have easily died in this.
Yes.
But the years of developing that anti-fragility is what brings you to 3 days from 3 days from the accident, being able to walk around.
I mean, that's why I say, like, you take a 35-year-old or 40-year-old who doesn't work out and this happens to them, it's I would say it's more probable that they don't walk after this. It's like, just like Rancis says, you don't rise to that occasion. Just because you're 35 or 40 years old, you get hit by a car, and you're younger, you may have a slightly more muscle mass than a 62-year-old.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're going to come out of it. You fall back to your level of training. Like, literally what the Navy SEALs do is, like, you want to be able to take bullets, you got to be able to handle the pain that comes with taking bullets.
So you're at day 3. Okay, your life is turned upside down. You're told you just had surgery. You're given the hope, and that's like, hey, you're going to be able to walk, right? You're in massive pain. Lead us along.
So that first attempt to walk was pretty tough. I think I went from my bed, I got to the door, and I walked a little bit in the hallway, and that was it. Then I had to go back. And that was with the assistance of the physical therapist. So throughout the course of that day, I did a couple of walks, which were not very far, but I just felt like if I could do it, I wanted to do it. And I couldn't get out of the bed by myself, but they actually showed me, if someone's going to help me, what to do. So that took some energy too, just being able to transfer, they call it, from bed to standing. Even like going to the bathroom by myself, that was a big deal. So I continued to use the walker. I think physical therapy came back the next day, and I said, I told her I did like 3 walks, each time to the nursing station and back, and then she said, all right, let's try to go like around the whole circle of the floor in the hospital. And I said, okay. And I did that. And she was like, you're doing great. Of course, to me, this felt I just never pictured myself to be in any situation even close to this. So I felt very sad and broken that that's the level I was at. But I just told myself I have to keep going. And they actually considered or offered me to go to an inpatient rehab, which I definitely was not doing. So
what is an inpatient rehab?
So if you're not able to take care of yourself after major surgery, sometimes they'll send you to a place where you're going to get physical therapy. It's basically kind of like being in a hospital, but there's not doctors there. So it would be a place where somebody would be supervising me, and I would get meals, and I could be having a little bit of attention in terms of just getting my physical mobility back. Mm-hmm. But it was also, it was never an option for me. I just didn't.
Why not? What's your resistance to that?
Every level of resistance. First of all, it was COVID. I pictured myself in one of those places, and I was like, I cannot go there. I just think it's for people that have no other options, or like really old people, and I just didn't think that I was going to benefit from it. So I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Anyway, bottom line is 3 more days in the hospital. I walked more. Then they also showed me how to use a cane. And I was discharged because at some point I didn't need to be in the hospital anymore. So I actually, my sister came to help me. She doesn't live around here, but she stayed with me for a couple days, and still tremendous pain, but each day I was getting a tiny bit better. Mm-hmm. And one of the main issues for me was I could really not sleep because pain, and just getting into bed or out of bed was very, very tough. So I got I think it's called a hospital chair, like a reclining chair with a motor that way I could sort of sleep, and then if I needed to get up, there's a thing that would like push me, and that was my best friend for a couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm. And was your sister staying with you, or were you alone?
Yeah, she stayed with me.
Okay.
For probably like another week, maybe less than a week, and then I wanted to go away.
You wanted
I wanted my space.
Your independence.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. But without her help in the beginning, I don't know what I would have done.
Mm-hmm. The whole time, like you're telling the story, there's always like these points of resistance that you have of the process, right? So at the beginning is like, can I go home now? Like right after the accident, right? There's you can walk, Karen, after the surgery, and Karen takes that to the next level, and she gets up throughout the first day multiple times. We're gonna send you to this like rehab place, and Karen's like, no. Get home. All right, sister, thank you for the help. I'm good. All right, so like, tell me about that spirit there, because I feel like that has a lot to do, and it kind of sets the pace of like everything that we personally experience watching you recover from all of this. But like, there's a lot of kind of drive there. So tell me about that.
You're calling me out. It's so true. I'm not so aware of it, but when you point it out, then I'm like, yes, that's true. I think I just, in a quiet way, I'm a fiercely independent person. I have a really hard time asking for help and receiving help. It makes me, I don't know, just something about that feels very uncomfortable, and I don't want to need help. I don't want to rely on other people. Now you're getting into my stuff. But in this particular part of my life, I think that it's helpful. It's helped me because it...
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, where did that backfire? Where did that start to backfire?
No, it backfires in other parts of my life, in relationships. We're not talking about that. But in this particular chapter of my life, which is still being written, it's been really helpful. So I am able to channel my energy and do what I have to do. And when I most clearly needed help, I was able to accept it for a limited time. I have to say I was very happy with myself that I actually followed the surgeon's recommendations in terms of the healing process, because really out of fear, because he was very conservative in when he allowed or gave me permission to little by little go back to more of the activities that I have always done. You know, I kept pushing, and he said, no, not yet. And then when I finally said, you know, why? And he said, because the hardware that I installed could come loose, and then you would need to have another surgery. So I was like, okay, no, I don't want to have another surgery, so I'm really going to follow your recommendations. Because I just wanted to get back on a bike indoors, and he kept telling me I wasn't ready to do it. So I was cleared in little increments to do more. I kept trying to push it. Like if he said 3 months, I was like, okay, 3 weeks. And then I was like, no, just don't do it.
So have a connection back to what you were talking about, like as a therapist, right? Giving homework to people to do these things. And now you're in the seat of receiving homework, because in a sense, like your surgeon is removing the block, saying, I'll allow you to start doing this. But it's really like, it's the homework that is helping you heal, right? So allowing you to, for example, I think the first thing was like to walk.
Yes.
Right? You had to walk in order to help the healing. For most people, it's like it would be like you need to start walking now, right, to help the healing process. In your case, it was like more like, okay, we'll let you start walking now.
Yes.
But I think that's a huge point to that, like that homework aspect, like how holistic healing really is in the process. And we're talking about just the physical aspect right now.
Yes.
But that impact of doing those things, and you've shared with me, and sure you'd like to share kind of the details of like what you were doing during that time physically, and when he would allow you, like for example, to start lifting some weights and things like that. So you started walking.
Yes.
Right. How much were you walking to begin with?
You know, in the very first couple of days when I was home, it was really little.
Just walking around the house?
I would go outside a little bit. It was also summertime, and I just felt like I needed to be outside, but I could walk like less than a block. I remember I tried to walk to a neighbor's house, and it's maybe a full block, and I got there, and I was like, I knew that I couldn't walk back because I was in excruciating pain. I started slow, but I would go out within, let's say, a week or two. I was walking multiple times during the day, and building slowly to a couple of miles a day at whatever pace I could walk. But I just, like, that was my homework, and that's what I focused on. Mm-hmm. I couldn't go out for like 2 hours, but I would break it up, 15 minutes, come back. An hour later, another 15 minutes, come back. So that was really like the focus of my day. That's what I could do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that I was cleared to do.
Yeah. And that lasted how long? Walking only?
I think so. July, August, September, 2 to 3 months.
Okay. 2 to 3 months only walking. Was that hard? Like you mentioned, like you would argue with your surgeon about wanting to do more. But then again, you also mentioned how the pain will show up and be like, hey, you're doing too much.
Yeah, no, I paid attention to that, and it wasn't really hard. I mean, again, in the first couple of days, yes. But as things began to heal, it wasn't really hard. I mean, I was mostly walking on flat roads. I wasn't trying hills for quite a while, but wasn't that difficult.
I wanted to go kind of back to that resistance because you said that like it helped you. And when you first started talking about it, like inpatient, I was like, I didn't know that part of your story. And you said, no, I'm not going there. I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, you shouldn't go there. And it brings me back to a story that I have with one of my coworkers. She was diagnosed with leukemia, the blood disease. And when she found out, she was like, okay, let's do this. And one of the things that she told me was, like, when you go into the process of, like, trying to recover from leukemia, they have this, like, 150-page document of all the crap that can happen to you. And you're supposed to read it and sign this whole thing. And she started reading and talked about all the side effects and all these things. And she was like, you know what? I'm not going to put this shit into my head. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to sign it and do it because that's what I know I have to do. And she went through it. And now she's fully recovered. But she was just like, the power of the mind after that experience was like what she took out of it. It was like she did not allow any of those negative experience, anything that would change her environment. Mm-hmm. She didn't allow people that she knew would come in here and give her sympathy. She was like, no, I have to be strong in this moment, and I need to bring the people in my life and the resources in my life that are going to get me through. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to send her to like inpatient. She was like, no, I want to be with my daughter because I know my daughter is going to help me through. Mm-hmm. I want to be with this doctor because I know this doctor is going to help me through. Mm-hmm. So when I think about your story, I'm thinking about like, yeah, like that is important, that like I guess resilient mindset in that moment is like, no, I'm not going to allow any of these things in there because you already have enough that you're dealing with.
So true, Mo, and I'm glad you're bringing that up because I have so many times I realized that I got, I don't know, luck is the right word, but that I was very fortunate, and I had and I have a lot of gratitude for the people that have been there for me and helped me heal, and you guys are part of that. I just never was having to be on the receiving end of help, and I mean, like I said, the neurosurgeon I think is an awesome person, but I also was able to be treated by a really good acupuncturist, and I still continue to work with a physical therapist that I think has helped me tremendously. And it's knowing that I could rely on people if I need them, and I'll do whatever it takes, but I recognize that I needed the support, but I also recognize if there were negative people, like, I can't afford that right now. So that's been actually like a life-changing thing for me.
What does your health, love life, spirituality, career, finances all have in common? Your mindset. Mindset is the source of creating change. To learn how to install these and other life-transforming concepts, browse through our free collection of courses at BeTheProject.com.